Stan, what are your thoughts around the evolution of gym culture? And specifically, what I'm kind of speaking about here is like the commercial style of gym. You know, much like you, I started training in high school, young kid, sand weights, you know, out in the garage. And then late 90s, early 2000s, I found a bodybuilding gym. And then the first gym I worked at was a huge commercial gym in 2007. We had 2 squat racks, and they were like the old school. They weren't the power racks that you see everywhere today, but there was only 2 of them. You walk in any commercial gym here today in 2025, like I got 2 down the road, 14, 15 power racks, right? It's like the moms are out there power racking. You know, it's like the glute drive, the hip thrust have become the most popular exercise for women. Nobody was doing that 15 years ago. For me, it's got me excited because I think everybody is catching on to how great strength training can be, but it's been cool to witness, and you've been in the game much longer. So what are just your kind of general thoughts around this evolution and how strength training is becoming such an acceptable and kind of normalized thing?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. There has been a huge culture shift. I've credited this for many years now to CrossFit. Uh, and women being able to see, historically it was always, the Victoria's Secret model, and then it was the bikini girls, and it was just it was getting as tiny as possible, weighing as little as possible. And when CrossFit came along, you started to see strong, powerful women with, I would say, more normal physiques, that aren't genetically blessed with tiny little legs and the like, who were focused on performance, not weight, as mentioned earlier. Because the scale is, to me, I mean, it just doesn't tell the whole story. You can not lose any weight on the scale, but lose 6 inches on your waist. But you're adding muscle, right? And we know that muscle, pound for pound, is smaller than fat. And so you're just going to look leaner and smaller. So I'm always cautious when I get a client that gives me a weight goal. And I'm like, well, what's your waist measurement? What's your, let's take some before and after pictures. Let's look at, if you just look differently in the mirror, so I've always credited CrossFit for this, because we started to see these strong, powerful women for what they could do, as opposed to what they weighed and what clothes they could fit in. And then you're right. And then came all the squat racks, because, there was a lot of squatting and Olympic lifting going on, so that's been great. And I just think the attitude in general has changed. And as more science gets involved, I just think people in the gym are more helpful. They're not judgmental. And we have entire gyms now, things like, what's the one with the lunk alarm? Is that Anytime Fitness or
Planet Fitness?
Planet Fitness. Yeah. I mean, there's just places where, old meatheads like me aren't necessarily, don't feel comfortable. And I've trained at plenty of Planet Fitnesses and Anytime Fitnesses when I traveled over the years, and they're perfectly appointed, gyms to be able to get a great workout in. But you just don't see, you kind of got to go to a hardcore club. Sometimes I look them up when I'm in certain cities to try and find a place that has a monolift and has a deadlift, an actual specific deadlift bar, or an SSB bar or something that I want to train with, because those aren't very common. But the squat racks are loaded, and they're loaded with women, and they squat. And you're right. And, you mentioned, as far as glute training and the stuff and being somewhat new, Brett Contreras has been doing his glute training stuff for 15 years, but, it takes a while. He's sometimes it takes 30 years to become an overnight success, but now, rightfully so, he's getting recognized for having been one of the pioneers in that field of helping women build muscle. And then, it's also helped more recently with some mainstream longevity people, such as Dr. Peter Attia and others, and Gabrielle Lyons, Dr. Gabrielle Lyons and others, and even Huberman. They've spent no shortage of time talking about the importance of muscle. And Stu Phillips recently has written about the American Heart Association having come out with a statement saying that strength training and cardiovascular training are equivalent from a long-term health outcome perspective. There's obviously both is better than either, but they're equivalent, and he believes necessary both. So weight training now has become not expendable; it's become uh, advisable and even mandatory. And even the American Academy of Pediatrics suggests that weight training or resistance training is, and this is their quote, essential for adolescents in terms of improving, decreasing injury risk, and just improving general health. So once we saw it, after CrossFit becoming attractive, and then we started to see it through the lens of longevity and health span as opposed to just lifespan. I think now that the wave is overwhelming, and especially with the new GLP-1 agonists, the semaglutide and Wegovy and Ozempic and the like, understanding that if you're going to lose a significant amount of weight, you have to resistance train so that you don't also lose a significant amount of muscle. And we know that eating protein is not uh, as important as the training for retaining lean muscle mass. That the protein, there's a large variance in the amount necessary to maintain lean mass, but the lifting of the weights, doing some sort of resistance training, is the primary driver of lean mass retention or muscle gain, not just bumping up your protein intake. It's not enough. So
Much like you, man. I'm an optimist. I'm excited to see the next 10, 15 years just with all the acceptance. I never thought about it through that perspective of CrossFit kind of being the catalyst, but thinking the timeline, CrossFit kind of hit the wave 2011, 2012. That had been a couple years after I was working in gyms, and then it took those years. So I could definitely see how that played a massive role. And yeah, I mean, now we got, Kennedy in the house, and he's at the forefront of, you see him at Venice benching with his shirt off. So for me, I'm excited to see the next 10, 15 years with this wave of young kids that are growing up as this is like the norm, because that's what it takes. It takes a generation or two for things to fully shift culturally.